Hey everyone, I'm Jessica Kramer with MRC-TV. Today we're speaking with Kara Frederick, a research fellow with the Heritage Foundation and a DoD civilian who was deployed to Afghanistan 3 times in the last decade. She's familiar with the country and we're excited to have her expertise to make sense of this current situation. Kara, thank you for joining.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So the unfolding of what's happening in Afghanistan has obviously captured the world's attention. Having been on the ground there 3 different times, were there any signs that U.S. withdrawal would end up the way it has with a full Taliban takeover? What are your thoughts on the situation so far?
So I think for the most part, people were taken aback by the botched nature of the withdrawal. We all knew that, the Afghan security forces weren't necessarily the most high-speed, cutting-edge operators that exist in the world, but we've been training them for 20 years. So I do think that people did not expect the Taliban to take over as rapidly as they did. But that's entirely a crisis of the Biden administration's own making. In my mind, it's clear that the State Department, the Defense Department, did they not think to pick up the phone and call each other? Everyone knows when you're conducting an evacuation, you don't withdraw from your most secure, your best operational base in Bagram, that's in Parwan province. You don't take that capability away before you get all the Americans out, before you get all the SIV applicants out, before you get your green card holders out. So in my mind, this was easily preventable. This is a crisis of the Biden administration's own making, and they helped the Taliban in that way take over so precipitously by botching this withdrawal so egregiously. I just think that we had a long time to plan for this, and it was done as poorly as could have been.
Speaking of evacuation, many believe that there are evacuation plans at American assets in foreign countries. Why does it seem like these plans were not activated before the military withdrawal?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It just seems like we pulled away in the dead of night. I don't know if you've seen any of the Babylon Bee satire, but they're saying, the U.S. leaves quickly in the middle of the night to avoid humiliation. It's like it came true. It's like we actually did it. And as my Heritage colleagues are fond of saying, and I think this is really important, by September 11th, 2021, the Taliban will control more weapons, they'll have more money, and they'll have more territory than they did on September 11th in 2001. To me, that's a failure of leadership. That's maladministration. That's the fact that America couldn't get its act together to execute this withdrawal in an efficient manner. And it's all our fault at this point.
Do you have any faith that our leaders are going to commit to getting American citizens out and friends of ours left in Afghanistan?
I would if Jen Psaki didn't go up on the podium and deny that Americans were stranded in Afghanistan. The first step in actually rectifying a problem is acknowledging that you have a problem. It appears right now this administration is not doing so. That is, it's a dereliction of duty. It's something they should rectify right away. It doesn't look like they're going to do it. It looks like at this point we're taking orders from the Taliban. What happens when America is taking orders from its enemies? Yes, the enemy always gets a vote, but at this time, we should not be setting the conditions on the ground that makes them able to take advantage of us. And that's exactly what we're doing. So if I had any faith during this week that the Biden administration and Biden himself would actually wake up, that was all dissipated yesterday with that Psaki press conference.
Yeah, did you expect him to kind of walk back what's happened and say, I made a mistake and now I'm going to take leadership seriously and change the game plan?
Well, what I think this was it was a political miscalculation. So I think this was actually done deliberately. Afghanistan, it hasn't been in the news for so long. You're not really seeing, you're not seeing the daily casualty reports. It wasn't what it was when I was there in 2010, in 2011, in 2013, when you were hearing about American Special Operations Forces taking casualties, conventional forces taking casualties. You didn't really see that. We didn't have boots on the ground for the most part in the most dangerous areas up in the north where we were conducting counterterrorism missions. You just didn't really see it in the news very often. So I think the Biden administration, I think this was a political job. They thought the Americans were still asleep when it came to Afghanistan. They didn't really care that much. They wouldn't be too upset if we sort of got out in the dead of the night. But clearly they miscalculated. Good thing that the media is actually putting a focus on what they're doing doing in Afghanistan and how poorly they're doing it. So that's one of the good things that the mainstream media has actually been doing for the past few years. I'm frankly surprised, but I still think that they're banking on Americans forgetting. They're not banking on the fact that Americans don't like being lied to. And it's very clear that this administration has been lying and lying and lying to us, not just about Afghanistan, but for the purpose of this conversation, I mean, that's the number one thing right now that they've been lying to us about.
I guess I'm just trying to understand the strategy behind that. I mean, so for example, we've heard reports of what the Taliban has done to women and girls, but very little from Vice President Kamala Harris. Like, why is the administration responding this way? Like, what is the end goal? What's the benefit in all of it?
So it seems that they just want that credit for getting out. So you notice that before the August 31st date and after the May date that Trump set that conditions-based agreement, Joe Biden said, we're going to be out by September 11th, 2021. He wanted the political win. He wanted to be able to say, my legacy is getting out of Afghanistan by September 11th, 2021. A lot of what Biden is trying to do, in my mind at least, is trying to outdo Obama's legacy. He wants to go down in history as Obama 2.0, just better, bigger and better than Obama. So far, he's done that in record time if it comes to foreign policy debacles. We know the Obama administration had some of the biggest foreign policy failures that we've seen in our lifetime. The Iraq withdrawal, which he completely botched, Libya, Syria, so what is that? A genocide, a dead ambassador, another botched withdrawal. It looks like Biden is really trying to outdo him in this regard. So I think that they thought that they would get points for getting out of Afghanistan, for quote unquote bringing the troops home, but it appears, and he miscalculated to the utter shame of America. He betrayed our allies in doing so. I'm not sure if you've seen the reports about the British Parliament condemning President Biden, which is an unprecedented move, and the fact that China is taking full advantage of this political miscalculation by Biden. They're already saying, hey, Taiwan, nice little country you got there, even though it's not a country, it's part of China, but nice little piece of China you've got there. You would be a shame if somebody took it away from you, and America's not going to come to your aid because they clearly don't keep their promises. We are emboldening our enemies and other nations who want to do us harm by failure after failure in the foreign policy arena orchestrated by the Biden administration.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Many people are saying that this decision by President Biden will have lasting effects, including not giving our allies in dangerous regions reasons to trust us in the future. What do you think the Afghan people, specifically left behind, think of us now?
Oh, they're never going to trust us again. And not just the Afghan people. I do like how you brought up the women. So a lot of people are saying, we went in there and we wanted to help the women and the girls. And where are the people who were wearing the pink hats and marching on Washington, D.C. during Trump's inauguration? Where are they now? They're completely silent. Like you said, Kamala Harris, completely silent about what these women are going to suffer at the hands of the Taliban. And like I try to tell people, make no mistake, this is not just a different culture. This is not just, people who do things differently than Americans. It's not a product of our sort of strategic narcissism, seeing the world filtering from our own lens. It's a cold, hard, concrete fact that the Taliban are a brutal organization. They're fundamentalist ideologues, and they want women to live under the scourge of Sharia law, and they are already doing so. I don't know if you saw that one image of the girl behind the gate screaming, the Taliban are coming, the Taliban are coming. You could see it in her eyes that she knows what's on the horizon for her because of her gender. Where's Kamala Harris talking about that? Where are all the women who were marching on DC talking about that? There are conservative women raising their voices and saying as much, but I don't hear anyone on the left saying that. So in my mind, I do think the Afghan people, they're never going to trust us again. We were there for 20 years. They, pockets of them did trust us. They helped us. They were extremely salutary for the war effort. We made friends with them. We ate with these people. We drank tea with them. And now no one's ever going to trust us again, not just our Afghan partners, but people in the region as well. What leg do we have to stand on?
Absolutely. Well, When this all went down, there were reports of Taliban leaders being let out of prison, and with our border not being as guarded as it should be, do you think that this is a national security threat? Do you think we're compromised?
Absolutely, on two different levels. For one part, yeah, our southern border at this point it's open. We're in a full-fledged border crisis. So we need to think about what happens when, honestly, we're just putting tons of people on planes. We need proper security measures. Heritage is behind a secure border. We want to make sure that we are appropriately vetting and screening all SIV applicants. That's huge because at this point, the southern border is an absolute disaster. As my Heritage colleagues have said, it is time to press the panic button when it comes to the southern border. And you better believe that any of our enemies are always willing to exploit a crisis. So when they take these targets of opportunity, they're going to be trying to actually come in. So we need those security and vetting procedures in place. They need to be tight. We don't want to see what happened when Europe just threw open their doors and members of terrorist affiliated organizations just flooded in, changed the character of some of these countries. So we need to think very, very hard about that and stick to our principles when it comes to secure borders. But also there's a second national security issue, and that is transnational terrorism. The reason I went over there starting in 2010 was to make sure that Al-Qaeda did not reconstitute in Afghanistan, the same place that they used to plan operational details for September 11th, 2001. These transnational terrorists, those relationships have not gone away. In fact, they've only gotten stronger as we've had a very, very light footprint in the country, especially along the border with Pakistan. So we need to make sure that we are prepared for when they're coming back, because they're going to reconstitute, they're going to come back. It's a permissive terrain for them to actually conduct their operational planning. We need to make sure that external operations don't germinate from those areas as they have before. It's very, very tough because now we're not there. It would be very tough even with just a small residual force. That capability wouldn't be as robust as I think, as many people have said it would be. So in the end, we just need to plan for these two big national security issues that are on the ridgeline. Make no mistake, it's going to become a crisis if it's not a near-term one right now.
Gosh. And lastly, is there any way that America and those oppressed in Afghanistan can still win after all of this?
That's a good question. I think at this point we can mitigate the debacle. We're not going to fix this. We already did the damage. The biggest problem here is, the ethos of America is to leave no man behind. That has driven our military. That has driven, what is beating in the chests of everybody who raises their right hand and signs up for those national security, those military positions, those intelligence positions. When we say, oh, if you can't get to the Kabul airport by August 31st, that is creating potential future hostage situations over and over and over again. So if we had front-loaded that effort, if we had gotten everybody not shut down Bagram in the wrong order, if we had actually made sure that we gotten American citizens, green card holders, and those SIV applicants out, that would be a much better way to sort of front-load that effort. Now we're going to have to retroactively go back. If indeed we do believe still in the no man left behind, we're going to have to go back and we're going to have to get an American citizen out if they're being held hostage by the Taliban, passed to Al-Qaeda or another transnational terrorist group. So something to think about that it didn't look like the Department of Defense or the State Department actually thought about. And in my mind, again, a dereliction of duty. In order to mitigate it, we need to make friends. We need to plan for the stability of the Central Asian region and start building those alliances and start diplomacy now. Other than that, this is going to go down as an unmitigated disaster, not just an egregious disaster.
Wow. I appreciate your expertise and your passion. You were so fun to talk to. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.